And we're live. Hi, everyone. Me and Russell are back, not live, but at least together again. Thank you so much for spanking me last time.
Oh, that was a pleasure, Bob. It really was.
And we're going to talk Spanish championships. This will be the final video for me on the Spanish championships. For me, I think it will be the final video I do on any major tournament for version 2. Yeah. So a farewell to version 2 competitive gaming, more or less.
It's nearly there, isn't it? There's one or two more larger tournaments. I think BritCon is the big one, the British
is going
one.
to be the big one, yeah.
I'm hearing they've got over 80 players now, so that could end up being the biggest this year. And that'll be kind of the big final bang. And then Scotland has a tournament, and then that's pretty much it. I think
that's pretty much it. So there are going to be minor local tournaments, and I know in Denmark there's going to be 3 or 4 minor tournaments, but nothing compared to what we've been seeing so far. But today we're going to sort of recap on what we saw, and we're also going to go and watch at least the top 5-ish lists from the Spanish nationals. So strap in. This our track record says that this will take an hour, Russell. I'm sorry about that. Right.
Well, I've locked up the room and put a do not enter sign on, so you should be okay.
Because Russell is still at his job.
I'm at work,
Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to go and see, because of course I made a little PowerPoint for it. So here we go. And this is going to be my PowerPoint. Right, let's do from the start. Right. So this is a recap of the Spanish Championships 2024. The pack. Let's start with the pack. The missions were out ahead of time, as was the pack, and they even released an FAQ, which both you and I behind the scenes participated in, because I know at least Achilles and Hanno, they wrote to me quite often asking weird questions.
Yeah,
and I know they did the same to you. Yeah.
Just confirming basic rules. As you know, there's a Spanish version of the rule book, and so just checking that what's written there is the same as what's written in the UK, or I should say English version. So that's all good.
That was all good, and also as I think as long as we two agreed, they were like, then that's what we're going with, more or less.
I guess we did, because every time they were like, okay, thank you. so it seemed like that worked.
Yeah. They had a very permissive pack as regards to list building, didn't they?
Because they did.
Everything that was allowed in Easy Army was allowed. And I know that
not quite, actually, not quite. We can come on to that, but they started out with, I think the reason being, look, not everyone's going to have the book they want, and also sending lists in. They wanted everyone to use Easy Army to send the lists in. When you're checking 70 odd lists, having them all in the same format is helpful. Very much. There was that. Problem is that then allowed a couple of people like me to go, oh, okay. So we both took. By the way. So we both took multi-launchers. They made it clear you couldn't bring manpower of the Empire. So they blocked the Indians being taken, which is correct. They shouldn't be taken. They allowed, because they were allowing anything in book, in the end, after I put in some lists, they finally come back and went, look, Russell, can you just make one change and not all these changes? So the only thing I really did, I added the SAS Deception team.
Yeah,
and I upgraded.
By the way, for people who don't know, Russell's army had basically Brandenburgers for Brits, which was absolutely amazingly good. Yeah,
that can work well. But we'll maybe talk about the list a bit more. The Brits are too strong anyway, in my opinion, and this kind of just lent into it a little bit.
This did lean into it, and we'll see once we get to the top players. There was a lot of British armies there, but of course all the top players were at the same time very, very good players, so it's really difficult to separate the two. How much extra power did this lend to Great Britain, right? We don't know, but it was very clear that the Brits were not being pulled back a little bit. They were in full competitive mode.
The missions did some of that. There was a little bit of the missions slowing the Brits down, which I purposely thought was deliberate. I'm reassured was randomly drawn.
The lists were not well suited for the British armies, but that was I think that was perfectly fine since the pack was really powerful for Brits. Tables. There was a lot of talk. I posted a bunch of the tables onto Facebook, and some people were immediately commenting that, "Oh, they look very bare," and I was like, "They're not actually that bad.
No, they weren't.
No, they're not actually that bad, at least to play on. At least, you take the photo and it quickly turns into like a 2D flat.
Exactly. That's the issue, isn't it? You look like here, you're looking at a flat screen. That table there was absolutely fine to play on.
It was.
It's just when you see it in 2D, you don't see the depth of it. You don't see that actually there's a lot of cover and there's a lot of areas you can use. Yeah. So I thought the tables were fine. There were a couple of odd ones, but you get that.
There was a couple of very open ones. And I mean, when you're building 38 odd tables, I mean, it's really difficult to have terrain enough for all the tables and to make them all equally like balanced and stuff.
To be honest, Kingdom War Games, who kind of sponsor and run the event, they, to my mind, have got enough terrain. I thought there was enough, and pictures can be a little bit misleading. So 38 tables. I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, for me as well. They were more tournament oriented and less pretty than we sometimes see in Denmark. I think a lot of people in Denmark put a lot of effort into making diorama style tables, but they can sometimes be really difficult to play on anyway. So we're definitely guilty of that over here as well, of decorating the tables over practical use. But well, it makes for nice printers. At the same time, some of the tables were like the prettiest I've seen. That table of Berlin with the Spree River. I mean, that was just amazing. Anyways, the missions all had kill points as something that counted, which I felt lent itself well to certain armies and less well to other armies, I guess.
Yeah.
There was a lot of objective missions, so like there was 3 objective missions and only 1 kill point mission, which also, so there were no missions where it all came down to placement, for instance, like sectors or envelopment, double envelopment. And there was a lot of first wave or taking turns to deploy. So I felt like the missions were a little bit similar, maybe, but that's what we came down to. They randomly rolled the missions, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I was perfectly happy with the ones I went with because there was some similarity on some of them, but they like cleans and hold, but they were different enough that they all had different challenges. And if you play them on different tables, that's fine. So no, I was perfectly happy with them. As you say up there was no prep, which I thought
was perfectly fine.
Was good because that just slows the Brits down a little bit, which probably is needed. So I was perfectly happy with that. Also, there were all the missions that I remember allowed flanking and reserves to come in.
Yes.
Which I kind of expected. Now, when I built my list, I know the Spanish like using Germans and Brandenburgers.
Yes, they do.
So I had a suspicion that there was going to be a lot of flanking being allowed, which was one of the reasons for my list build. But again, I don't mind that. And the missions were released, so we got to see them, so we knew what we were going to play, so we could get ready for them. That was another good point.
I think the only thing that sort of the final mission. You had to have reserves. I always built my armies not to reserve anything or not to outflank anything. I always wanted everything on the table. And that final mission against you, that sucked having reserves. But I mean, and I really liked I really like the idea of having secondary objectives for every single mission.
Yeah, they really add to the game.
They really add to the game,
And the way they work in Spain is they have no impact on the game, which is fine.
Yeah.
And they give you an extra 10 kill dice. So they're very meaningful, more meaningful than when we use them. We use them as like a second way of deciding. But for them, it was like, you get an extra 10 dice. And so they're really, very important.
For me, because I got all 3 secondary objectives in my first games, I think I pulled ahead of some of the other players massively just by taking those secondary objectives, right?
Yeah, I can well believe that. Yeah.
So I really like the missions. I also like the changes that they did because some of the missions are not very playable. We played Top Secret, which by the rule book, it's not a playable mission. It's
No,
not
it's not.
something
I haven't
that you
played
should
it at
play.
a tournament for
Yeah.
4 years as a result.
But because kill points actually counted for quite a lot, you could actually, even though you lost the central objective, the top secret objective, you could still win that mission, right?
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
how many people did, but you could. So so that for me, I think the changes that they had were really nice to the missions.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was well set up. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it really did. So we had 76-ish players. They had 80 seats, but there was a few dropouts. There always is. And I think that for a tournament of that size, it was remarkably well organized, even though I apparently can't spell organization here. Sorry about that one. And they even had, like, they started out wanting to run the tournament on Tourniquet, but then decided after game 1 that they didn't want that anyway for some reason. I don't know why, but so
I think there was an issue with players just not logging in correctly, and then logging in wrong scores, and then they had to go and correct the scores, and then, so there were some issues. But like all good organisers, they had a backup plan, which was a guy with an Excel sheet writing
and
in,
it worked perfectly.
But it is a good reminder that having a backup.
Always have a backup. And I mean, for an organization where you went to plan B with 76 players, it ran so smoothly.
Yeah.
Really did. I mean, hands down, some of the best organizers, some of the most calm, collected organizers, even though we had that one lady, I can't remember her name, shouting at the top of her voice at times just to be heard. But I mean, that was just because the room was full, right? There was a lot of noise because we were tightly packed.
Across two buildings as well, because they have their games room set area, and then they have the actual shop, which is separate across the road.
And there was, of course, a little bit of a language barrier for me not speaking Spanish, for some of the Spanish players not being very proficient in English. I mean, there was a little bit of that, and at the same time, the noise was quite intense.
Yeah, a tiny bit, but where it the only time it was an issue once for me was me explaining that the player couldn't do something he wanted to do, and I just, luckily enough, there are plenty of Spaniards that can speak some English, and one of them just leant over and explained to him. He went, "No, you can't do that." I can't remember what it was, but it was something he wanted to do, and it was like, "No, that's that was it." He was claiming he could put his artillery piece in cover, but none of the infantry in the cover, so he could still move the infantry, or it was something strange. And it was like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah,
but that was dealt with. It was dealt with, no problem. Everyone's very friendly, and you just discuss it through. But that's fine. And the noise, you're right, it was quite noisy at times. But it was a nice noise. You know, you could hear like people laughing and playing and enjoying themselves.
There was no like arguing and stuff, which we'll come to in a minute.
I didn't see any. That's a good point.
Not a single like argument. It was just people being, friendly and wanting to talk about the game, and we were just tightly packed. So that's just that happens.
Yeah, even we didn't argue.
No, of course not. Why would we? We know the game. I mean. The TOs, let's do that again, because I saw almost no need for any judges at any point. Did you?
No, I don't remember seeing it. It was all agreed in a quite friendly manner.
Yeah, it was.
From what I could make out, and when there was one or two points when I said no, that's not how you play it. Luckily enough, there was another Spanish player there. Every time we went, no, that's right, so it all went really well, and there was no it wasn't, oh well, that's how we do it. It was, oh okay, no problem, and we just carried on.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the aides, the TOs, worked more on organization than they actually did like judging, because there was I didn't see a single TO being called down at any point, which for me, running tournaments in Denmark, is very unusual though.
Yeah.
So it really was a friendly atmosphere, and the lists were out ahead as well, but I mean, there were just so many of them, so it was really difficult to for me at least, to do what I usually do. I usually over prepare, like go through every single list and figure out how would I play against this, and there was no way of doing that.
Not with that number. You can maybe look at the top players and get some note of what they've got and go, oh, that's interesting, but it's not a level you can prep at. I agree.
No. And I think there were a few lists missing from the final compilation.
There were a couple, but nothing that none of the major players.
None of the major players, and I think it's
and
just because there was a little bit of change up with some players dropping out last minute, some players going in last minute. That's what you always have. It's always difficult to have a very fixed deadline, especially with many players, right?
Definitely.
I felt like looking over the lists that the Spanish meta became clearer for me, that there was a lot of lists that I would call balanced lists. They don't really like having like mono builds. Like I often build a mono build, right? But they really didn't do that at all. The Spanish players, they had like
even the British lists, even the British lists tend to do that, which is kind of like how I like to play as well, actually.
Yeah.
Also, single generic reinforced platoon means it's harder to specialize in one thing.
It does. It really does.
So there is that as well. But yeah, they play quite, generally speaking, quite balanced lists, which I quite like. It's what I do. So
yeah, I think it also makes people better at the basic game. Basically, I mean, it's because you get a little bit of everything. You get practice with everything. For me, for instance, running a multi-launcher, I don't often run multi-launcher. I felt like I was constantly placing it in the wrong place.
Yes,
I wasn't very practiced with that damn multi-launcher, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've played against enough of them. So when I was using mine, because I never use them, but I took one to this tourney. And when I took it, I was like, what would I not want my opponent to do? That's how I used it.
That's the way to think about it, right? I also saw quite a lot of full strength inexperienced squads, but we've seen that before from the Spanish, right? They like that because that means
I like
that they have a
it
good,
as well. It's that re-roll, isn't it? You get the re-roll for the unit, particularly when you're bringing them on. If you have to bring them on, that's great. Going, I haven't rolled a 7. It's all right. I'll try again. So it makes a big difference.
Yeah. And a lot of Fausts, obviously. They really do like their Fausts. I think it makes the infantry a lot more dangerous for tanks, which is like the darker tanks are like everywhere. So that sort of balances out a little bit with them having a lot of Fausts in the builds. I still think some nations were overrepresented, like the UK. Definitely, we had a lot of British lists. But Germany also had a lot of lists, and
Germany's popular,
very popular. And I think that's not because of the power of Germany, more because people like their German armies, right?
Few Japanese lists around as well.
Very few, very few
more than normal, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a reasonably nice mix. But yeah, the big two, as it were, which is UK, Germany, were there. Fewer Soviets than maybe you'd normally see.
Yes, as well. For me as well.
And a nice mix.
Yeah.
And we saw 1 or 2 Finnish lists, which is interesting. Polish lists, couple of Spanish Civil War lists, which are fantastic. There is a list available for that, and they were really beautifully painted as well. So there were some nice lists to see, definitely.
Yeah. And some by the way, when you mentioned this, there were some really good painters as well.
Oh God, yeah, the standards amazing.
They are good. Yeah. Right. The gaming culture, for me, it was very, very casual, if that makes sense. Like, people were very accepting of mismatches where they came up to me and saw that I had the Gurkhas and saw that they had like 11 orderized Germans and were like, okay, let's get on with it. You're going to kick me. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. And they were very accepting of that, like, mismatch that there sometimes can be between a very competitive player with a supercharged army and a like completely relaxed casual player. That for me was like very cool to see. They were also very accepting of misfortune, like, oh well, you rolled a 6. Oh, now my heavy howitzer is dead. Okay.
Yeah, they just write it off. There's a real understanding. This is a dice game. Get on with it. Yeah, which I like. And just on the mismatches, you are right. I had an opponent in round 3 where I knew I had to get a lot of dice to get into the top 8. And by round 4, the game was kind of done. And he was like, oh, should we? And I was like, I'm really sorry. Like, normally I
Can we
would
just
always just shake hands, but I need the dice, and so there was
yeah
a bit of laughter, and he was like, okay, no problem. And he
yeah.
then he tried to make it as difficult as possible for me to get the dice, which was great because
Which
he
is
was
what you
playing
want. That's I
exactly.
mean
Well, I
yeah.
didn't feel that way at the time, but yeah,
It makes
it
for a
was
better
good.
game. It does.
Definitely does.
Yeah. And there was a lot of play to intent. Like people were very, very good at trying to communicate their intention and then just playing to that, which I felt like was
Yeah,
really brilliant. Especially across language barriers, you really need that.
yeah,
And across culture of how do you play that certain piece of terrain. Well, if you play it differently, just tell me what your intent is, and we can agree on whatever, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
Where that's noticeable is on
yeah,
placing of models as well,
yeah,
I think. You'll move units and then start adjusting the movement around a
yeah,
bit, and that happens a
yeah,
lot. And I know people in the UK who really don't like that. They're like, "Oh,
yeah,
you've moved the unit though," and it's like, "Well, yeah, they've got the figures moved up, and now they're."
yeah.
I've got no problem with that myself.
Yeah.
So
And there was even a lot of takebacks. I mean, you gave me one where I was like,
yeah,
"What was
yeah,
that? Not last? Are they still on ambush? What?" I forgot
yeah,
about or couldn't see it. I don't know. And so I didn't run my flamethrower straight into an ambush. But I also gave quite a lot of like just okay, right, do something else. You forgot that I was
yeah,
sitting here on
absolutely.
ambush. Like, no worries, just do something else. It doesn't matter. So there was a lot of takebacks, which I felt like was really like it created a kind of nice mood. Everyone was happy about what was actually
Yeah,
happening.
there's
Which
no gotcha moments. Well,
there
haha,
were no
yeah,
got you, haha,
people
you
aren't
just
trying
made a
that.
mistake,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, exactly. Which I felt was really nice, but does say a lot about casual Spanish culture, I guess.
maybe
Yeah,
it will do. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
There
and
wasn't
actually,
the yeah,
on that, the other thing I loved was there was a proper break between every round.
yeah,
There was no rushing, so it wasn't like right schedule means we must start at
yeah,
7:30 a.m.
yeah,
or it was like yeah that's all right. You know we have a nice break, we set up
yeah,
again. They accept they're all there all day, so there's
yeah.
no rushing to get
There
it done, which
wasn't.
I like.
Yeah. Which I had to take my phone and put it away and just say, well, schedule, be schedule. I don't like. I'll just see when the next game happens, right?
Yeah,
Because in Denmark, I think we're very Germanic in that respect. You on time and stuff. But I was like, whatever. I'll go to the shop. I'll have a break, have a Coke, sit down, whatever. Wait for it. Yeah. So it was really nice. The main takeaways for me at least that if you have that many players it means that you can really like dodge. Some players can dodge
well you might
playing the best
have.
because I at least I felt happy that I only played you in the finals. That was it. That was the and then I played Phil Echo, who has been to the WTC but is maybe not a top player, right?
I'm with
He
you.
was
Yeah,
doing well at the time though,
yeah, he's
but
a
you
good player,
played
but I don't think he minds you saying that. He's a good
no,
player.
no,
Don't get us wrong,
but
but
yeah, but you played Carlos in was that round two or
round
three?
two, yeah, round
Oh
two,
yeah,
yeah, that was brutal,
yeah,
really brutal because I think we both knew it was probably a knockout game,
yeah,
and when it was a draw finally right at the end,
mm,
and on top of that, we both. So I was on the secondary, and he managed to get a unit onto it to
yeah,
basically nullify that. We
yeah,
kind of looked at each other and thought, yeah, we've knocked each other out.
yeah.
Um, so
But
fortunately for me, round three I made up for it. But yeah, oh god, that was a great game, really
yeah,
good game.
but that means that you among all the players who came in the top eight, you were eighth on a single draw,
Yeah,
which was just enough to push you in. But at
yeah.
the same time, none of the other players had actually played like top competitive players.
No, it was
None of us had.
strange. It was
Yeah.
strange the way it worked, and that wasn't deliberate, or it was just a case
Yep.
that it was based. Round one was random, then it was a
Yep.
Swiss draw based on
Yeah.
dice
Yeah.
taken, and it's just the way it fell. It's just
Yeah.
one of those weird things.
Yeah. But there are a lot
So
of players, which means that you can actually be lucky and dodge a lot of, which I
it's
guess,
possible. Big
yeah,
events, it's always possible.
yeah,
Like I know Cambridge Too Far, which used to be a 100-player event in the UK,
mm,
and it was sometimes surprising who won it, and it was simply for that reason that
mm,
they'd worked their way all the way through, and
yeah,
you're like, oh blimey, they didn't really play anyone.
yeah,
So it can happen. Yeah,
yeah. So and of course, also a takeaway from me is Swiss draw can be really punishing when you're like on top table and then you lose and then you go down to sixth. But I knew that.
Although actually, Bo, the Swiss structure drops away in round 4. So you played the worst player in the group of 8. So what they do is they do Swiss up to round 3, top 8 go in, and then the number 1 ranked player plays the weakest player. So that's actually quite a good system.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I think we've been experimenting with placement games in Denmark, and I really like that system. But so it was just, one of those, you lose the final game and then means you're way out of runnings, but that will happen. I also think that a takeaway is, again, good players will float to the top. All the players who were in the top 8, we had overpowered armies and a lot of Gurkhas and stuff, but we were all of us very good players. All of us had been to the WTC.
Yeah, there was no one. There was no one in that final round of 8 that you wouldn't consider. Person, Kit, shut the door, please. Kit, shut the door, please. Shut the door, please. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with that completely. Sorry about that, Bo. Slight interruption.
Yeah. And then we just have to say it that Gurkhas in the hands of a good player is a combination really difficult to work with, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, oops, do you need to answer that?
That's my phone. It's the wife calling. I'm going to have
why don't we pause for a second, Bo, and we can come back.
I will try to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna mute for the moment, guys. We'll be back in a second. Sorry, I'm gonna. Okay. But then you need to grab it quickly and straight back to anything. Okay, no worries. Got history.
Right, I am back. Russell has to deal with school stuff. Yeah. No, my point was here that Gurkhas in the hands of a good player, it's just very, very powerful. It does give you that 12% extra power. So yeah.
And but that's kind of what we expected, and it's a great way of running the tournament because you end up, as I say, top 8 all in there. They've all worked their way in there, and then actually doing that first 8, second, 7th means you do get, in theory, you should get some kind of reward.
Yeah.
So we're not putting first, second, which means you then automatically one of you is going to drop down. So there's an understanding for why they do that, and I quite like it.
Yeah. I think we also agree that Gurkhas do give you a 12% something increase in power and likelihood that you'll do well. It's just very clear that Gurkhas here at the end of version 2 are one of the best units in the game, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why we saw a lot of them, which kind of knew was coming. So I think you commented my list was built to deal with that.
Yeah. Which was brilliantly thought out, by the way. I really like that you actually sat down saying, okay, I'm going to need to beat at least one overpowered Gurkha list. So
you knew it was coming. Absolutely.
Yeah. So my predictions going in was that Manuel, you and Achilles and Carlos were going to be in the top 4. I'll put myself there. I didn't want to say that at the time, but
I can understand that. But that's fine.
I did believe that I would end up in the top 5 as well. And Miguel, who had a 20 organized French DACA list, but I absolutely trashed Miguel, so he was out. I sort of ruined my own predictions doing that. But those lists for me were the lists that I felt like, and the players, that combination of skill level with power of the list, that I think could do well, right? Hanno also came with predictions, and he was also very, very close. He had predicted himself in as well. I didn't do that. Achilles, Harvey, who also came up and was in the final 8. Carlos and Dessen, who had an American skirmish army. You, of course, ended Carlos's chances of being in the final top 8. So
yeah, well, and to be fair for Carlos, I don't think he was very well that day as
No.
well, because we had a really brutal game, and his next game I think he was quite tired from, which I don't think our game helped that, because it was really intense. But I know he wasn't feeling very well, so that definitely handicapped him a bit.
Yeah. So the results, the final results, and I may get this wrong, but Achilles with his Finns won. Manuel came second with his Brits. Hanno came third with you as well in third place. They were giving out 2 third places.
They've put it round the 2 different ways, so it's fine. We joined third in some way.
Because those were the 4 that won the final games, and then the rest of us, Harvey, me, Kartoffen, and Paul Wickens, we were the 5th to 8th, respectively. So
makes sense.
And here we have a picture of all the guys in the top bracket here. All of us very recognizable faces. All of us had been seen at the WCC before. But you'll quite easily see here we have 4 British armies in the top 8, right?
That's telling you a lot, isn't it?
It really is.
Although interestingly, 2 Japanese armies as well.
2 Japanese armies. That was a really interesting little thing. I think perhaps that they were lucky that they mostly avoided going up against Gurkha armies, because typically Gurkha armies will kill off Japanese armies.
Yeah.
I don't know how their game went. So, but that was the results. Now, here at the end, Russell, if we have time, I think we should go and see the top lists. Are you up for that? Why
not? Yeah,
good. So I'll start with Achilles' finish list, which that for me was an odd one, wasn't it?
It always is with Achilles. You know that. He knows what he's doing. He really knows what he's doing with those lists.
So and it was on page 192, I think.
Oh, what of their?
Yeah, here we go. So this was his list: 18 order dice, 1150. He had a regular second lieutenant with an infantryman, and then he had continuation wall rifles, which I was like, okay, you have a lot of those continuation wall. So he had one.
He wants the Panzerfausts. That's what he's doing there.
He wants Panzerfausts, and he had 2 in each unit. He had 7-man squads as well, which also was a surprise to me, because I would always run finish at even numbers just to make sure that you very quickly
get the benefit. So the idea, just to explain to people, the reason you do that, if you lose half your unit and your Finns, you move up a level of experience. So your veterans even can become super veterans, and all of a sudden they're passing stuff from 11s, not 10s. So there is a little trick there that you don't want 7 guys, because you've got to lose 4 of them.
But Achilles did, and I was like, "What? Why?" But so I have no idea why he's doing that. But it was really, I mean, he obviously did very well with his Finns here. He also had a Jakari squad, which I would never take, but again, he did submachine guns in a Finnish list.
I know, that's just but he's got a reason. He's got a role for the unit, so he's like, I don't need to lean into their rules completely, because I need them.
About it.
Consolidates jumping off.
Yeah, he always wants to have at least 1 close combat unit. Yeah. And this is it. Like 4 submachine guns and 2 Panzerfaust. They're very good in close combat. They're veterans. And then 1 Sissy Recon, which is the unit I would normally take.
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah, and these he does take in an 8-man squad. They're the ones who can go on ambush after they've advanced, and brilliant, like just brilliant. And then he had a flamethrower team, a sniper team, an anti-tank rifle team, medium mortar with a spotter, the heavy automatic cannon, flak cannon there. That is brutal if he can get line of sight. That
is a classic Achilles pick as well.
He's been
using that for years before anyone realized how good they were.
Yeah. The BA-10 with a medium light anti-tank gun. Also,
no, what is that about?
I have no idea. And the Pastuna I do get, because it's got a lot of machine guns and it's got a light howitzer as well. It's just a very good tank for 130 points.
It's surprisingly good.
Yeah. a Horstron Limber, and then Komsomolets. 4 of those. 1, 2 are
2 of them are
veteran.
vets.
He obviously wanted to be able to outflank or come in from reserves or whatever.
Yeah.
So this list is just way, way out there, isn't it?
I just don't know anyone else who'd play this.
No one else
but
would, and he
is
played it
such a
so
good
well.
player.
Played
Yeah,
it so
like
well.
for me, why are there no Calcapatio? If
Mhm.
you've got access to them, I know they're very expensive, but
They are.
1150 list, and you can come in behind your opponent. That
Yeah.
for me, just the fear factor on it is worth the points. But look, this guy knows what he's doing. We've both played him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a smart cookie. So
He is
yeah,
very,
I'm
very
not
smart.
surprised that he won the tournament again.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of a record for winning this tournament, it should
Yeah.
be said. So
Yeah, he does. Again, we don't know what players and armies he went up against, but just winning with Finns and winning with this type of Finns, I mean, you're going to have to be very good. And I think Achilles is like his instincts for the game are very, very good, very on point. So yeah. So that was the first list. Then let's look at Manuel's. Manuel had come to the dark side. And I teased him about it because he's been playing like Germans, Hungarians, Japanese. He likes to play horde armies, and
he
suddenly
likes inexperienced hordes. Yeah,
he likes inexperienced hordes, and suddenly here he is with an 18 order dice British list with Paragurkas. So very unusual for him. Inexperienced second lieutenant, Gurkha Perez 6-man unit, Gurkha Perez 7-man unit, with a few submachine guns in that unit as well.
Yep.
The free artillery observer. Another 8-man unit here, again, submachine guns. And
again,
here we have a 7-man unit again, submachine guns. And another with submachine
7-man
guns.
unit. Yeah.
8-man unit, this one. So 2 8-man, 2 7-man, and 1 5. So a mix of different sizes and power levels. For me, that was, again, a little bit weird. Up and Adam, of course. Inexperienced medium mortar, the way it should be run.
We can discuss that. I would have thought you'd learned your lesson after our game, but I don't know.
Yeah, true. Flamethrower team, regular. Pier team, regular. Land mattress, because of course, if you can.
Because you can, yeah.
Yeah. Horstron Limber, of course. The Armadillo was a really interesting addition because it's 7+, but open-topped, heavy autocannon, and LMGs with 360 fire. A really nice little darker vehicle, but of course vulnerable to small arms fire.
It's actually even better than that, because what you do with it is you move it up the board, you then spin it.
Yeah.
So it's facing backwards, because that's the way you want it facing because of the autocannon.
Yes.
And then it starts blamming away.
Yep.
So it's a heavy autocannon. It's 35 more points than a normal heavy autocannon. But you also get 2 light machine guns on it. You get armor 7, and you can move it into place. So it's really good.
It's actually really, really good. He had a couple of trucks for the Gurkhas, inexperienced, Jeep inexperienced. That's transport for small teams.
There's a lot of
Chaffee.
They're quite popular now. You're seeing them more and more, Chaffies.
Yeah. I think that's because they're hunting the stewards.
Oh, God, yeah.
If the stewards went away, the Chaffies would as well, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So a very, very interesting list here, very powerful. I like the inclusion of the Armadillo, but it's always going to compete with other like very good British armor car choices, isn't
Other
it?
options, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know with Manuel, he actually played this list or a very similar list at the English national qualifiers, so he had good practice with it. Where I think he won all 5 games.
Yeah.
And he just kept telling me, because he hasn't really played Gurkhas before, he's just, Russell, these are so OP, these are so overpowered. And you go, wow, they're so overpowered. Like,
and it does feel like that when you've been off the Gurkhas for a while. I've been playing Partisans for a while, and you come back and you sit down and you play Gurkhas. It feels like you're getting in a Ferrari and just pushing down that pedal.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. And so that was Manuel's list. Let's go into Hano. Hano came 3rd along with you, and he was on page 99. Let me go and find him for us. He had another another
Yeah.
British list. 16 order dice, second lieutenant with an extra man, inexperienced. Gurkhas, 8-man section, so not the para Gurkhas. Good on
Like
Hanno.
straight Gurkhas, because he's going for bodies here, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. He's going for 8-man Gurkha units here with a couple of submachine guns. He had a few extra points. And the free artillery observer, and then engineers. So
Yeah,
the
classic
Royal Engineer
engineer.
section, the Canadian Engineer section, and then guards. He's been running guards for quite a while now. I don't get it, but he likes them. So 8-man squad here. They've got the discipline, up and Adam, and then a medium mortar.
That's actually the advantage of them, Bo. Going back slightly, you can combine them with Gurkhas if you want a holding unit that does a slightly different job.
Yeah.
And they get the discipline rule.
Yeah.
Instead of the up and atom, which you're like, well, actually, I don't need up and atom for a guards unit. That's not how they're going to operate. So that's what they're good at, sitting back and holding. So that's what he's doing with them.
Yes. I just think that there are cheaper units to do that.
Yeah,
with.
there are other ways of doing it. But
inexperienced medium mortar, sniper team regular, Pier team regular, land mattress again.
Yeah.
That's going to be a theme for all the British armies here. A jeep as a tow, veteran.
It's a vet, this one, so he can flank it with the Pier. Yeah.
The Staghound armored car, because yes, it's very, very good. And Indian armored carriers, they are Bren carriers, but with wheels instead, which is really nice as well. And a Darker Steward. Very, very standard, very, very, like, the only thing that's non-standard, I guess, is the inclusion of the guards.
Yeah.
The rest is very much what we're seeing, like, meta right here at the end of version 2, isn't it?
100%. It's really, like it's interesting because the Gurkha lists we're looking at, they're all varied. They're built around the same core with a couple of slight preferences in terms of what the player wants to do with it. But they're all, for me, they're all 5 ranked. Because they're all doing exactly what the player wants to do. And they couldn't achieve, there's nothing he can do to that list to make it better, in my view, not really. Like, you can make a case for the guards, but we know why he's got them. So
we do. Yeah, it's just a very, very good list. It's really, really strong, isn't it? And obviously he's been playing this for a while as well, so he knew his way around it. Then there was your list on page 122. Let me go and get that for us. 122. Here we go. So that was 15 order dice, so low compared to many of the other.
Relatively low, but I'm very comfortable with that. As you know, I'm used to playing with fewer dice.
Yeah. Inexperienced second lieutenant, and then the Gurkha paratroopers here, 7-man squad with submachine guns in them. These were very good in our game just because you had so much firepower in the units, and we couldn't close because we were playing Gurkhas on Gurkhas. So the close combats were not happening, and the firepower was really good. The SAS Deception team, this one is key. If you can take that one for a British Army going into the future, dear viewer, do so, because they've got Deception, which means that enemies, they get a -1 to come on from reserve and outflank.
Oh yeah, which could be really useful.
Really useful. Then you had the upgraded naval observer, which also was deadly. Was he that deadly in all your games, by the way?
Not in all of them, but so against Carlos, I don't think he killed anything. But so just to explain to viewers or listeners, right? So for an extra 80 points, you upgrade to being a naval artillery observer, and what that means is you're, instead of being 6 inches plus D6, you're now 9 inches plus D6, which is a fairly significant increase in terms of the area you're going to get. And then the other thing you get is on the 6 you still get a HE4 hit, but on a 5 you get a HE2 hit. So it means you've doubled your chances of hitting the enemy unit, and also you're hitting more units because of a wider area. So it's expensive.
But you're doubling chances of killing stuff,
Exactly. It's pretty nasty because it massively increases your odds of getting something. Like I said to you, if I can target 5 units, and I normally get 5 at a minimum, there is a 54% chance I hit 2 of them. That's pretty good.
Which is what happened against me, right? You
statistically, you were bang on what I'd expect.
My Steward, which was I think very key against me. It was very difficult for me to come back against that. I should have spread up more, but yeah, you make mistakes, live and learn. And then of course 3 more Gurkhas here.
Doing the
You
same
have
job.
them.
And one of
Yeah,
them is a 5-man unit. That's simply because I haven't got the points
yeah,
to spend because of my other toys. So one of them has to be 5 men, and they've all got 5 SMGs. And the reason
yeah,
for that is it makes them better against
yeah,
Gurkhas.
yeah,
So they are there
exactly.
to take on other Gurkha units.
Which is exactly what they did in our game. Medium mortar team here built the way the Brits like it.
Regular, of
Regular
course.
with a spotter, of course. Again, that was for our game really good because it meant your mortar could sit and shoot in total safety, right?
Yeah, where you had to bring your one out, and then it
Yeah,
just got eaten by some flanking Gurkhas, and that's
yeah,
the issue with them.
yeah,
So
yeah. A sniper team, a flamethrower team, a blacker bombard. Also, I thought that was really clever of you. Really
it's
clever.
more a deterrent. It doesn't really kill
Yeah.
anything,
No,
but
it
you can
doesn't.
set it somewhere, because it's a HE2
Yeah.
template
Yeah.
that can run around if it needs to. It just
Yeah.
means your opponent just looks at it and goes, I don't want to go near that.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
you
quite
went on
useful.
ambush with it quite a lot in our
Yeah, he
game
just
because
sits
that was
there saying,
really clever.
basically
Yeah.
saying, look, you can move through if you want, but you're taking a big risk. So yeah,
Yeah.
he does a nice
Yeah.
job at that.
Yeah. A land mattress, of course, and the Marmont Harrington. I wasn't a fan of this, not in our game and not in general, but I know you like it. Can you like explain to me why is it built
Well,
this good?
for example, in our game,
Yep,
it's fast. So when I
it is.
realise you've got
Yeah,
nothing on your right flank,
yeah,
it swings round, which means it
yeah.
can get into your backfield. So it kills your land mattress before it can do anything.
Mm,
It then is fast enough, it swings back in, and it's
yeah,
then putting 10 shots a turn into the Gurkhas, hitting them, and then it's
mm,
blocking off roads. So if the
yeah.
Gurkhas want to charge, or it makes it very difficult for you to use them. So that's what it
Yes.
does. It dies a lot, but I don't mind that. It's kind of there because when it dies, it's then blocked off some terrain as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and for 80
yeah,
points,
yeah,
it's a pretty effective use of the points, I think.
yeah,
So it's because I can't afford a Stuart. That's my equivalent if you want.
yeah. A jeep for transport,
Yeah,
and then the
mainly for the
Lee.
flamethrower.
Yeah, then the
And I can
Lee,
put the
which is
officer in it. So the officer
mm,
goes in it, which means he gets a +1 when it flanks or
yeah,
comes on from reserve.
yeah. The Lee, I think, also was key for this this army here because you've got again an HE2 with a medium anti-tank gun, and you got 9+, which means that you're not invulnerable to Stuarts, but you're fairly
Pretty
safe,
much.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
the
you've got
mathematic.
double anti-tank guns to shoot
Yeah,
back
it
at the
actually
Stuarts.
is designed to go after Stuarts. We did get a couple, and the logic there is basically, look, I've got a 60-inch range. You've got 48 inches.
Yeah,
So my short range is 30 inches. Yours is 24.
yeah,
So I can get in a situation where if I get you between 24 and 30 inches, which is what I'm looking for,
then
I'm
you're
now
good.
hitting you on, say, a 3. You're hitting
Yeah,
me on a 4. But more
yeah,
importantly, I'm getting no -1 penetration. So I'm glancing you on a 3,
yeah,
whereas you are a +4 weapon. You are now at -1 because you're at long
yeah,
range. So you're
yeah.
+3. You can only glance me on a 6. So the matchup is just horrible for Stuarts.
And on top
Um,
of that, you also have the light AT gun, so you
which
have
can
double
plink at the
dice.
Stuart to help,
Yeah,
or it can just
yeah.
hit another target. So,
Yes.
and it's also then got a machine gun on top, which can do.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, it's expensive, but we are now seeing a lot of them in the UK.
Yeah.
Someone joked to me about it. I think it was at the Welsh Open, where suddenly we went from one last year, which was mine, I think,
Yeah.
to about a dozen of them.
Yeah.
So people are starting to work out that these
Yeah.
things work really well. But
Yeah.
you're right, Bo, when Stuarts go, or if Stuarts go, these probably disappear as well because you won't need something to do the job they do. So
Unless we're seeing another light tank go in and take the Stuart's place,
yeah,
then you'll see something come in and be a counter to that meta at that point. But we shall see what happens with version 3, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. I'm only sad that I only just got my Lee now, and it's painted and stuff, but I don't think I'll field it that much, just because the Stuarts are possibly going to go away in version 3. Anyways, so that was the top 4. Now Javi, I think I may have gotten Javi and Kartoffeln mixed up. If I did, I'm sorry. But we're going to go and watch Javi's list. He came 5th, I think.
Right. If we got that wrong, apologies to people. That was my fault for saying. I'm pretty certain Javi was 5th. So
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Apologies if I am.
But here he is. And this is an 18 order dice Japanese list.
And it's a vet heavy list. I like this. So.
Really vet heavy. I like it a lot.
It's one of your Death Star lists, is it, Bo? I think.
Yeah. A regular second lieutenant, veteran squads, 12-man units. That's 24 veterans. Yeah. Tough fighter, fanatic, not Urban Adam, but Banzai. I mean, they're just almost impossible to shoot away. A Kempeitai, an engineer squad as well, veteran again.
That's interesting, veteran, yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, bamboos for the Kempeitai, and just to have that re-rollable green, I mean, it's just really good. Full strength, of course, on those. Inexperienced medium mortar, sniper team, veteran again. He really leans into the veterans here. Flamethrower team, veteran. Suicide anti-tankers, 3 of those, because that's the best you've got as Japanese. A spigot mortar, regular. I like that one.
Spotter, yeah, I like that. Well. I use that at the WTC.
Yeah, it's really
regular
good.
As well, because I want a spotter. Yeah. You should always take a spotter, Bo.
Kurogane with a pintle-mounted MMG. I'm not a huge fan of these.
I don't see the point of that in a Japanese list.
And then because he took the captured Stuart.
That is the only tank, other than maybe a holo, that he should ever take. Yeah.
And then, of course, a couple of transport for his guys. I mean, just a very, very interesting, very good, very unusual Japanese list because of the Stuart, because of the veterans. It's not what we usually see, isn't it?
I think it could be better mini-maxed. There's stuff I would do differently. But with that said, it's still a very tough list to take on.
Yeah, but he's got 2 of everything that I think you would need. He's got 2 darker vehicles. He's got 2 veteran squads. He's got 2 flamethrowers. He's got 2 inexperienced units. Like, he's got 2 of everything that he needs, except maybe some more HE.
Yeah, that's an issue, especially when you're taking on Gurkhas, because all of a sudden that 12-man vet unit is only getting 6 swings. And okay, it will wreck the Gurkha unit it fights, but there's a good chance it's going to lose still. Yeah. So statistically,
and he hasn't really got any direct HE. He's got the indirect with the 2 mortars, right? But the direct is not there. So
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how much that bothered him during the weekend, but for me,
well, he didn't until round 4. So
so
it went very well.
Yeah, it did. And then, of course, there was my list, 83. Here we go. So that was 16 order dice, 1 order dice more than you, but not massively high. Second lieutenant inexperienced. Gurkha sections, I had 1 extra submachine gun because I had.
Yeah, you've gone with 8 men, haven't you? Not 7.
I always go with 8 men. I know 7 is mathematically better, but I like having that extra body because I know I'll lose Gurkhas going into the charge. So it's just a matter of having something you can shed while you're charging. And the free observer, I had 5 Gurkha units because why wouldn't I? I don't like playing with engineers, so I don't. And I'm not taking them Para-Gurkhas either. I know that Manuel felt like Para-Gurkhas were completely overpowered and unstoppable, and they are. I don't find flamethrowers to be that much of an issue, to be honest. So medium mortar inexperienced, 1 flamethrower team, a land mattress, because you could.
Because you can, yeah.
Yeah, the early war motorcycles. In some games, they were really good.
Yeah, I'm not convinced.
Game, not so much.
I quite like playing against them, if I'm honest, because they're a bit like they're a slight distraction. They're like a buzzing bee, but they're very vulnerable. So if your opponent does want to use them and run out with them, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. You're going to get 4 shots on me, whatever. And now you're in the open. I've got a good chance of getting a dice. So I actually like playing against them for that reason.
The LVT, I guess,
no one else is running that.
Controversial pick here. A Jeep, that was for the flamethrower, and the Stuart. And if I could just talk about the LVT, for me, that is an extra darker Stuart, basically.
Yeah.
And I use it as such. I didn't lose it a single time during all weekend.
That's because it turned up late in our game.
Yes.
I wanted it earlier. I wanted to kill it.
Yeah, it didn't come on in our game until turn 4 or 5. Very late game, yeah. So that was a problem for me. But I mean, it was really good to have. The only thing I think I missed a little bit was one infantry unit that could have just sat in that. Like 5 regulars would have been perfect. And I've taken all my infantry as Gurkhas, so it was really expensive having them just sit in the Buffalo to shoot all the machine guns. So I had to work around that using inexperienced lieutenants and stuff. But I mean, it worked brilliantly well all weekend for me. So yeah, it is difficult to use though. It's not like the first 5, 6, 8 games I ran with this. It died immediately. But I think I have it down now. I know how to
timing,
do it.
isn't it? It's using it at the right moment. If you use it too early, it will just be killed. So you've got to be willing, although it's a lot of points, you've got to be willing to wait. And I know a lot of players often, even some very good players, they have a different philosophy. So they would say, what I'm saying now is wrong. They'll say, if you've got points, you've got to get them on the table. I don't agree. I think as long as you use the points at the right moment, they don't have to be on the table all game. So.
And also it's checking your opponent's list and seeing what is actually a threat to me, and all the time be aware of where that threat is. Do I need to go on ambush? Do I need to be in reserve? All that it's just you're very aware of what can actually kill that buffalo, right? The thing that's killed most of my buffaloes, though, is a medium mortar just hitting on a 6.
It will happen. Yeah, it will happen. That interesting. That's the other reason for paying the extra point on the Gurkha barras. It's not just flamethrowers. It's if you're sitting on a position and you start getting HE coming in, and then suddenly you've got to take a morale test. It saved me a few times, and I thought, phew, I'm glad I paid those extra 7 points. Yeah.
Right. So that was my list. Then we have Kartoffel's Japanese list. That was wrong. Was it 198? There we go. No? That
looks like that's going to be Achilles. So we got the. There you go. Oh no, it's next one. That's it. 198. Yeah, it says 198.
198. Okay. This one?
Kepler. No, that's Kepler. No.
That's Kepler. No, it's wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's wrong.
Never mind.
And that is Achilles. Oh, I thought I had looked all this up.
We're not going to find it. So
we're not going to find it. It's so many pages. We're never going to find that. Right. Let's just do Paul Wickens here at the end. Then I'm sorry, Kartoffen, we're not going to talk about your list. So Paul Wickens was 222. Here we go. So he had a 17 orderized Soviet list, and it's very, very Paul, I guess. I've seen him build lists like this.
Yeah. I've practiced against this list, so
yeah. So junior lieutenant, inexperienced. Scout squads, 2 of those, all submachine guns, 5 men, veterans. Love him. And he doesn't need to actually forward deploy these if you don't want to, but he can, and that's the key point here. A cavalry squad, regular, 10 men. A little big for my taste, but it's full strength. He can come in from outflank and just shoot 10 shots with his pistols straight into whatever is sitting there.
Well, he tends to keep them maybe slightly back in reserve because he knows they can move such a long distance, so they're ready there to go and reach out and touch stuff that they need to. And that's why he takes 10 of them, because he wants to make sure if he does charge you, he's going to win it. So he uses them well.
And then he has 2 5-man units of veteran assault engineers with submachine guns and Panzerfaust and flamethrower, all the jazz.
But no armor.
But
he
no
doesn't
armor.
take the armor on them, which I
very,
always...
very deadly, but very, very expensive for something that's just 5 veterans, right?
Yeah. Although saying that, I'm looking at the cost of the list and thinking, my goodness, is that right? 65, 78, 98. How many Panzerfaust?
2.
108. I might be wrong, but just looking at the cost of it, I'm
Yeah,
wondering. I think it might have armor.
I think so too, because it's too expensive for what it.
Six.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'd need to have a look. Need to have a
I
look.
think
Maybe not.
I
It
don't
says
think the
no,
armor has
so
been
I'm going to
noted here.
assume it hasn't. And my maths is
Yeah,
terrible. Oh no, there's SMG. So no,
yeah,
I do think it's not armor because he wants to be able to move them when they
yeah.
get out of the vehicle. He thinks the 6-inch movement is too
Okay,
restrictive.
okay. Then we've got the free rifle squad. Uh, a inexperienced heavy mortar.
Yeah. Again,
A
the
sniper
theory
team
there is it when it hits, I want to make sure it does its job.
really does
So
its job. Yeah, and it's not that much more in points. I mean, 46 points compared to 35.
yeah, it's only
Yeah,
11 points.
it's a
So if you've
only
got the
11 points. Yeah,
points, I
yeah,
completely get it why you would
yeah.
take that.
Veteran sniper team, which is very deadly and survivable as well. And he's got 3 dog mines, just so goddamn good.
They are
Uh,
just horrible. Yeah, they are
they
the
are,
one thing in
yeah,
my games that worry me because
yeah,
I'm like with the M3 leader, the one thing with the lead, well, I'm like, they're like
yeah. The dog
50-50
mines,
that if they do successfully
yeah,
roll to come in, it's 50-50
yeah.
that they're going to damage me. So no, I don't
And
like them.
look at what he does here. He has 2 of the dog mine teams, a 4-man team, so 4 dog mines in him.
He
He
wants to
is
make sure it
absolutely
gets through.
spamming those dog mines to make absolutely sure he kills that tank. Um, then an M30,
Of
because
course.
why not? He's Paul Wickens. We know him. The gas jeep with an MMG. Okay. I think the BA-20 is deadlier, but
He's points issue for him at
it's a
that point,
point
I
issue,
think,
isn't it?
because of
Yeah,
the way because he's going to put machine guns on his trucks as well.
yeah, yeah.
So the other issue there, he's giving you a lot of soft vehicle targets anyway.
He
So giving
is.
you another one in the gas, it's
Yeah,
not such a problem because
yeah.
you're going to have something to shoot at. So
There will be something to shoot at
there's
because
lots of
the
soft vehicles.
Katusha is, of course, a prime target for everything that
Yep.
can reach it. That maneuverable multi-launcher there, it's just very, very good, isn't it? And then 2 pintle-mounted MGs on trucks, regular, and that is it. Very
Yeah.
recognizable multi-launcher heavy list here with a lot of other tools to throw at you.
He's got a lot of
Um,
long range weaponry, so he can put a lot of shots out on you
yeah,
whilst he's
yeah,
moving around and setting up.
yeah,
And he can also deal with all the SMGs and the engineers. When it
yeah.
comes to the close combat time, he can take objectives.
He
So
really can. Yeah,
he knows what
and
he's doing with that list.
and
Really
very,
does. He's a
very
good player.
survivable. Yeah.
But
Um,
if you get your Gurkhas into it, you can rip it up.
yes.
But
The,
that's
the
a big
the
if.
question is, does he hit you first with all those multi launchers? And that is, of course, it is a gamble, and of course it. For him, it has to have paid off in some games and not in others, because he did came top 8, but he didn't win. So there is a gamble here that I've seen
Yeah,
him make before.
I think he played Manuel in the final
Yeah,
game, and I
he
think
did.
Manuel gave him a bit of a kicking.
Yeah,
I think Paul
he
himself
really
said
did.
that.
Yeah.
But that is the nature of the list as well. If it starts going wrong, it can go really wrong for you, and even a really good
And
player,
very, very
it's
quickly,
hard to
right?
fix.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And against Manuel, we saw Manuel's list earlier. Manuel had Paraga because his assault engineers were
yeah.
not going to be massively effectful. So he was already down a little bit in combat efficiency. And if he didn't roll those 6s with his multi launchers, yeah, it's going to be difficult. And Manuel knows how to avoid all those dog mines if he possibly can. So yeah. So any final thoughts here at the end from us?
Yeah, I think that was my third or fourth tournament with them. I think it's third actually, and I absolutely love it, and I fully intend to go next year, even though it's a bit of a pain getting a like late night flight and landing at 1 a.m. and
Yeah.
whatnot. But it's such a great event that I'll definitely go to it again because 70 odd players, incredibly friendly.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it, is well, just how friendly it is. But
Yeah.
you'll play really good competitive games. So for me,
Yeah.
it's like my favourite event of the year to date.
Yeah. And before we sign off, we promised ourselves that we would just give a little bit of a shout out to the coming World Open War.
Yeah, thanks for that. So that's all set for October. I think it's 26. It's over 2 days.
Yep.
We have got 15 of the 16 team slots locked in now. So there is actually one slot left. So if anyone wants to contact me and bring a team, a 3-man team to this tournament, let me know. It's so it's in Southend again.
Yep.
So the terrain will be
near
really
London.
good.
It's pretty easy to get to from abroad, I have to be honest, simply because the airports are really handy. So if you have a nation that's not represented in the World Team Championships at the 3-man event of the year, World Open War, that's the one. Contact me or Russell. We'll set you up.
Yeah, please do.
So we have 15 teams going right now. That's
15
so
teams
cool.
Locked in. I'm confident we will have 16. That slot will go, and then it'll be same format as last year. The only big difference, of course, it is version 3. So it will be the first version 3 event that I'm aware of to take place, and it's going to be a one-off unique event because this is the only time ever all these players and teams will be playing with no meta.
Yep.
Because within a year,
no one will have time to develop anything. we practically have zero time to figure out what we want to bring in our lists because no one knows.
But I think that put a few people off. But
maybe
if you think of it, this is a unique one. When is this ever going to happen again where you don't know the meta, you're still working out what works, same for your opponents. So it could be our most open tournament we'll ever have. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me as well. It'll be great, and we shall see. But can
you defend your title in version 3?
I will try anyway, but it will be difficult. Everything is pointing to a nerf of the Gurkhas, and I of course won that with Gurkhas, and you even said that if they don't nerf the Gurkhas, you will, because we need to see something new in the meta. It's perfectly. I mean, the meta has now stratified in version 2, right?
It's very clear.
So getting something new is a good idea. But that means I have to reinvent myself, which
good.
Oh man.
we all need to make a change occasionally.
Yes, occasionally. Right. That was it from us. Thank you so much for tuning in, Russell, and to all the viewers, thank you for tuning in as well. I will talk to you again.
Yeah, that's good. I hope that was a little bit more interesting than the England-Denmark game from a few days ago. So.
Yeah, it was. Right. See you. Bye.
See ya.